The New Day had their final match together with all three members. This was their first match together as a trio in over a year, because Xavier Woods got injured a little over a year ago. And then, of course, Kofi was gone for a while, but Woods was gone for a long time. So this was the first and last time in a while that we're going to see these three guys together work in a six-man tag match. This was billed as their farewell match, and they gave them a long promo segment before their match. Gave them a long promo segment in the ring against Sheamus, Cesaro, and Shinsuke Nakamura were the opponents. So they're cutting a promo before that, fighting back tears. One of many moments this year that would have been way more memorable in front of a live audience. Imagine these guys coming out in front of a live audience, giving a passionate, emotional kind of send-off promo like this, and the reaction they would have gotten. They probably would have had a pause for about 5 minutes for various chants and such. You know, the New Day, they're a beloved act on WWE television. You know, 6 years is a long time. I was thinking about this, because on commentary they made reference to them being the greatest team or the greatest group or whatever it was of all time. 6 years is a very long time for a group to stay together in wrestling, in a business where, and WWE is not the only promotion guilty of this, in a business where people are constantly turning on each other on TV and being broken up and acts are being broken up. It's a long run, and it probably will go down as one of the longer runs, one of the longest runs in history, just straight through. As long as these guys have stuck together, no, not even a hint of dissension. They've never even teased there being any kind of jealousy or rancor or everything or anything like that in the ranks of the New Day. And look, I mean, they're still together. I don't want to make it sound like they're just completely being split apart. I said earlier, they have a weekly podcast that they do together, so you're going to get to see the New Day doing their podcast. We know they're going to be sharing the same locker room every single month for pay-per-views, because you have members of both rosters on the pay-per-views. So it's like, you know, they're not going to be venturing very far from each other. And one day they're going to end up back together. They're going to end up on the same show. It might not even have to wait until next year's draft, the way things change. So this was nice and all to watch. I mean, I couldn't bring myself to get emotional because they're going to be back together soon enough anyway. We all know this is only temporary. But you start to get into the conversation of the greatest factions of all time. The truth is, I would not even call them the greatest faction of the past decade. That title belongs to The Shield. And I know The Shield was not together as long as the New Day. I was a huge fan of The Shield, that whole act, the way they booked them, the matches they were having on TV. They and Daniel Bryan were carrying Monday Night Raw all through 2013 into 2014. That show, I don't even want to know what that show would have looked like without Daniel Bryan and The Shield on TV doing their thing. And The Shield had some great matches on Smackdown too. But it was mostly on Monday Night Raw. So I wouldn't even call the New Day the greatest faction in the past decade, but I do think that New Day will rank in the top 10 all-time greatest groups when all is said and done, because I don't think their run is over yet. There's still time yet. So I do think they'll end up there, just based on their longevity, their success, the number of championships that they held, if you want to consider that. You know, their accomplishments on camera, and the single success of their members, right? The Shield hasn't beat on that, but Kofi had a great story heading into WrestleMania last year. And then he ended up having 6 months as the WWE champion. And I am optimistic. Maybe I shouldn't be. People keep messaging me because I've been talking about Big E a lot the last few weeks. And last week I talked about how I love the fact that they broke up the New Day. I think it's going to be great for Big E. And I love the fact that they kind of split them up without having them turn on each other. I would not have ever done that. I don't think the New Day ever has to turn on each other. Nobody has to turn and go heel. I think we're past that point. It's just not something I would ever do. It's like I said, I would never break up Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, and they already did that once before. Just because Paul Heyman is with Roman Reigns doesn't mean that if Brock Lesnar comes back, Paul Heyman can't be with both. I would never, ever turn one on the other. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman go together like peanut butter and jelly. Brock Lesnar needs someone like Paul Heyman to do the talking for him on TV. And one day when Brock Lesnar goes into the Hall of Fame, we know who's going to be doing the Hall of Fame induction, right? And maybe vice versa. Maybe maybe not. I don't know if I can envision Brock Lesnar being the one to give a Hall of Fame speech. The point is, some acts just should never be broken up. In the traditional sense of how teams usually break up. And I would put the New Day in that category. But yes, I am one of the ones, call me foolish, but I am one of the ones who is optimistic that WWE is going to do right by Big E. And I think that he's going to get his run. Sometime in the next several months, he will get his big singles run. I don't know how many tickets that you can say the New Day has sold, but I know they've sold a crap ton of merchandise. So clearly they have made, if you want, by any metric, if you want to look at this as from a business metric, how do they rank against the NWO and some of these great factions that sold a lot of t-shirts and all that? Well, you know what? The New Day is in that conversation. I don't know how many shirts the NWO sold. I just use them as one example of a successful faction. But by that metric, they've sold a crap ton of merchandise. They easily had to be one of the top merch sellers, maybe the top one, behind John Cena of the decade. I don't have the numbers to back that up, but I would be very surprised if the New Day did not rank at or near the top of that list. So they've made money. They've had in-ring success, and unlike other groups, this feels like a real brotherhood, because it is. And it is a great success story, because these guys didn't even think they would have a job for much longer in this company. The New Day quite literally saved their careers. Big E has talked about he thought he was going to get fired. Kofi Kingston, he had some success, but how much longer would Kofi Kingston have been around for? Xavier Woods? You think Xavier Woods would have been involved in something as big as the New Day like this? They would have had him wrestling on 205 Live. So the New Day, quite literally, the whole gimmick, the whole concept, them coming together, it saved their careers. But one of the reasons I can't consider them the greatest, yes, they've won 9 tag team titles together. They've been one of the most successful teams in the history of the company. But a lot of that has come at a time when the tag team division is simply lackluster. They've had great battles with the Usos, but after that, I challenge you. And just because they may have had a few good matches against Sheamus and Cesaro or something, that doesn't count. I'm talking like, when you look back at the body of work that the New Day has had, and some of their great matches and their great feuds and their great rivalries in that tag team division, you think of the Usos. Everybody thinks of the Usos at number 1. Who comes number 2? Who comes number 2? Who comes number 3? I draw blank. They've had a lot of really good matches, but I can't think of a single great program that they've been in with any other team, because the New Day and the Usos have been at the top of the food chain in that tag team division for so long, and then there's this huge gap after that. Because they just have not had that many great teams, and they don't treat the tag team division like it's anything really special. So, there just haven't been that many great teams in recent years in this company. And that's not their fault. I'm not blaming the New Day for that. But that is the state of the division being what it is. So how impressive is it? Really? 9 tag team titles, or 10 with this stupid swapping of the belts, whatever they're considered now. How impressive is it? If you're just padding your resume by wrestling the same teams over and over and over again. I don't know. To me, that doesn't strike me as being overly impressive. But are they on that list? Yes. Are they in the conversation? I believe they are. But I just cannot put them at the top. And the announcers can talk about them as being the best all they want to. That's the way they talk about everything. Everybody is the best. This guy is the greatest of all time. Really? Well, some people might make that argument about John Cena, because that's how they refer to John Cena now. John Cena is the greatest of all time. You're going to get a lot of pushback from people, though, who don't believe that John Cena is the greatest of all time. Some people might say that he is. You talk about longevity on top. He had about as much longevity as anybody. You know, Hogan had a lot of longevity in his career, so did John Cena. Although Hogan did it across multiple companies, which is more impressive. Hogan did it in the AWA, in WWE, and in WCW. That's impressive. But to call the New Day the greatest, I can't bring myself to do it.